Hi, welcome to Danny After Dark. If you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a notification or a new episode. Tonight, we'll be featuring the case of Richard Chase, otherwise known as the Vampire of Sacramento. So let's go ahead and find out more. Let's go ahead and dive on in. Richard Trenton Chase was born on May 23, 1950. Richard was raised in a strict household. In fact, he was often beaten by his father. In his teens, he became an alcoholic, started setting fires, and would mutilate and kill animals. In high school, Richard had several girlfriends. However, he was unable to maintain a steady relationship. There's much speculation as to why. One was it was rumored this was due to his inability to achieve or maintain an erection or to become physically aroused in the presence of females. Richard met with a psychiatrist who said that the root of his problems was due to possibly two factors. It was either repressed rage or mental illness. Upon hearing this, Richard did not seek any further treatment. As an adult, Richard moved back in with his mother, but it wasn't so smooth. He began to accuse her of attempting to murder him. He felt she was trying to poison him. Richard's father wanted nothing to do with this. So what he did was he purchased an apartment for his son and forced him out of the family home. Well, Richard now had a whole apartment all to himself. So how did he make use of the space? Richard began to capture, kill, and disembowel various animals. In addition, he would eat them raw. Specifically, he would gut the insides of an animal he had killed and put them in a blender and made smoothies. 1975, Richard was involuntarily committed to a mental institution after he'd been taken to a hospital for blood poisoning. He had gotten sick with blood poisoning after he injected rabbit's blood into his own veins. Richard, he was able to escape from this hospital, and he went straight home to his mother. Well, he was found, and he was sent to an institution for the criminally insane. While there, he was very open in sharing his fantasies with the staff about killing animals. One time, he was found with blood smeared all around his mouth. Hospital staff discovered he had caught two birds through the bars on his bedroom windows. When he grabbed them, he snapped their necks and sucked the blood. In 1976, Richard was deemed no longer a danger to society, so he was released to his mother. Well, she decided that her son did not need to be on the anti-schizophrenic medication that the hospital had prescribed and that he'd been taking, so she took it upon herself to wean him off of it. Richard now began to develop a fascination for firearms and purchased several handguns. He also began to lose interest in caring for himself. He neglected basic personal hygiene practices. What he now failed to do was bathe, groom, or even brush his teeth. He also stopped eating and had dropped to a weight of only 145 pounds. August 3rd, 1977. Richard's vehicle was discovered by Nevada State Police. It was lodged in a sand drift near Pyramid Lake, Nevada. Well, inside the car, police found 2 rifles, a pile of clothes, a bucket full of blood, and a cow's liver. The officers quickly tracked down Richard. Why is that? Well, he was naked and screaming in the sand. He was soaked from head to toe in blood. When questioned by police, he claimed that the blood was his own and that it had leaked out through his flesh. December 27th, 1977. Richard shot his .22 handgun into the home of a Sacramento woman. A police search of the woman's home found the bullet slug in her kitchen. Thankfully, no one was harmed. Richard was not tied to this shooting. December 29th, 1977. Richard shot and killed his first victim in a drive-by shooting. The victim was 51-year-old Ambrose Griffin. He was an engineer and father of two. He was helping his wife bring groceries into their home at the time he was selected and shot. It was determined that the .22 handgun used to kill Ambrose Griffin was the same one that was used in the kitchen of the Sacramento woman only 2 days prior. January 1978. While wandering around, Richard encountered a girl he knew named Nancy Holden. Him and Nancy had attended high school together. He attempted to get a ride from her, but she was frightened by his appearance, so she refused. Keep that in mind. Richard then went down the street where he broke into the home of a young married couple. He stole some of their valuables, but then it got really weird. He urinated into the drawer of their infant's clothing and defecated on the bed of the son. The couple came home, and Richard was still in the house. The husband attacked him. However, Richard was able to escape. Well, Richard continued to attempt to enter homes until he came across the home of David and Teresa Wallen. David was at work, while Teresa, she was home. She was 3 months pregnant. She was taking out the trash and left her front door unlocked. Well, Richard, after spying this unlocked door, was able to enter her home. She was shot 3 times. One shot was in the hand, which is considered the defensive wound. The other 2 were in her head. These shots killed her. The gun used in this murder is the same gun that was used to kill Mr. Griffin. Well, Richard wasn't done with her. He dragged her dead body into her bedroom and raped her while repeatedly stabbing her with a butcher knife. When he had finished doing that, he carved her corpse open, removed several of her internal organs, and used a bucket to collect her blood. He then took this bucket full of her blood into the bathroom to bathe in it. We're not done. He then sliced off her nipple and began to drink her blood. He used an empty yogurt container as the drinking glass. Before he left, he went into the yard, found a pile of dog feces, returned to the home, stuffed it down Teresa's mouth and throat. January 23rd, 1978. Richard purchased 2 puppies from a neighbor. Then he killed them and drank their blood. He left the bodies of these dead puppies in that neighbor's front lawn. That is beyond disturbing. January 27th, 1978. Richard entered the home of a 38-year-old woman, Evelyn Meroff, who was home babysitting her 22-month-old nephew named David. Also in the house was Evelyn's 6-year-old son, Jason, and Dan and Meredith, who was a neighbor who'd come over to check on Evelyn. Well, Evelyn decided to take a bath, so Dan agreed to watch the children. When Dan was in the front hallway, Richard broke in and entered the home. Dan was shot in the head at point-blank range with Richard's handgun. He was killed instantly. Richard then stole Dan's wallet and car keys. Jason booked it and ran to his mother's bedroom. However, Richard followed. On the way, Richard shot and killed David in the head, and then when he reached Jason, shot and killed him. Richard then entered the bathroom where Evelyn was taking a bath and shot her once in the head. She was killed instantly. Well, he was not done. Richard then dragged her body onto the bed where he simultaneously sodomized her and drank her blood. He kept slicing the back of her neck and drinking her blood. When Richard finished, he stabbed her at least half a dozen times in the anus. The knife even penetrated her uterus. He stabbed her in a series of vital points on her body, which caused the blood from her internal organs to pool into her abdomen. So he then sliced that open and drained the blood into a bucket. He then consumed all of the blood. Well, Richard was not done. He then went to retrieve young David's body. He took the body to the bathroom, split his skull open in the bathtub, and consumed some of the brain matter. While this was happening, outside, a 6-year-old girl whom Jason had a play date with knocked on the door. This completely startled Richard, so he fled the home with David's body, stealing Dan Meredith's car. Well, the little girl knew something was wrong. She alerted a neighbor. This neighbor entered the home, saw the bodies, and immediately contacted the police. The police noticed that the suspect left perfect handprints and perfect imprints of the soles of his shoes in Evelyn's blood. Well, what happened to Richard with David's body? Well, he brought David's body into his apartment. He then sucked out the blood from the body. He then sliced open and consumed several of David's organs. What was left of David's body, Richard disposed of at a nearby church. That is really creepy. Well, after the Teresa Wallen murder, the FBI was brought in to assist with the investigation. They compiled a profile of the killer. What the FBI determined was that the killer will be a white male in his mid-20s, thin and undernourished. Evidence of his crimes would be found in his residence, and if he had a vehicle, it would be found in there as well. He would either have a history of mental illness, drug use, or both, as he would be something of a loner. The FBI thought he was probably employed at some menial labor job or just unemployed altogether. And given his current state of mind, he could be receiving some type of disability money. He probably lived alone, and he might be paranoid. Do you agree with this profile? After hearing the FBI profile, Nancy Holden, remember, she was the old classmate who refused to give Richard a ride. She contacted the police. She felt Richard could be this killer. Well, the police ran a background check on Richard. They discovered his registration of a .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol. Detectives and a team of police went to Richard's apartment, where they asked to speak with him. Richard refused. So the detectives and the police hid down the hallway. They waited for him to leave his apartment. When he did, they arrested him immediately. Well, why? He was carrying a blood-stained box, and in his parka and shoes were completely blood-stained as well. Inside the box were pieces of shredded, blood-soaked wallpaper, a blood-stained .22 weapon, and when they searched Richard's person, they found he was carrying the identification and wallet of Dan Meredith. Well, the detectives clearly were able to get a search warrant for the unit. In his apartment, what they found was a horror show. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, the refrigerator, the eating and drinking utensils, everything was soaked in blood. On the counter was the blender that Richard made his smoothies with. Inside of the blender and even on the outside was coagulated blood and rotting matter from internal organs. Inside the refrigerator, police found several dead animal body parts. They were wrapped in aluminum foil. They found David's brains in a Tupperware container and pieces of his body wrapped in saran wrap. They also found several of Evelyn Merritt's and Teresa Wallen's internal organs. FBI agent Robert Ressler, yes, the famous FBI agent Robert Ressler, asked Richard how he selected his victims. And this is so telling. He said he went down the streets, testing doors to find if they were unlocked. If the door was locked, that means you were not welcome. In 1979, Richard stood trial on 6 counts of murder. In order to avoid the death penalty, the defense had to try to find Richard guilty of second-degree murder and to prove that to a jury, which would result in a life sentence, as again opposed to the death penalty. Their entire case hinged on Richard's history of mental illness and his lack of planning any crimes, which they tried to show he did not premeditate these crimes. Well, the jury found Richard guilty of 6 counts of first-degree murder. A judge determined that Richard was not legally insane. Richard was sentenced to die in the gas chamber. Well, he never made it there. While waiting to be executed, Richard became a feared person in prison. The other inmates, they were aware of his graphic and bizarre nature of his crimes. They often tried to convince Richard to commit suicide. Richard gave a series of interviews before he was found deceased, during which he spoke of his fear of Nazis and UFOs, claiming that although he had killed, it was not his fault. He says he'd been forced to kill to keep himself alive. He believed prison officials were attempting to kill him. December 26, 1980. A guard was doing cell checks, found Richard lying awkwardly on his bed, not breathing. Richard had taken an overdose of prison doctor-prescribed antidepressants that he had been saving up over the last few weeks. Richard Chase was now dead. That is the case of Richard Trenton Chase, otherwise known as the Vampire of Sacramento. Thank you for sticking around for another episode of Danny After Dark. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a notification or a new episode. Do you have a question or a comment about this case? Leave it below. Let's be interactive. Do you have an idea for a case that you would like me to cover? Well, leave it down below. You may see it covered in a future episode. Until next time, remember, we don't live in darkness. Darkness in us.